Hey guys, Pelican here. Welcome to my Stamblade PvP build for the Blackwood chapter. Short intro to this setup. It has very high damage, you hit as hard as a ganker, but at the same time you also have very high mobility and sustain, and you are decently tanky considering you are in a medium armor setup. So in this video I'll be going through everything I'm running as well as explaining them, and I'll also be going through lots of alternatives that you can run over what I'm using. Timestamps are in the description, and without further ado, let's get into the video. So firstly, I'll go through the gear setup. I'm running 1-piece Bloodspawn, 5-piece Titanborn on the body, 5-piece Clever Elk on the back bar, Talk of Toner, as well as Vishwan Perfected Maw on the front bar. Now the reason I like Titanborn so much is because I find that it's a very nice set for an aggressive playstyle. It's perfect if you are the kind that likes to, go on the offense when you're at low health. You just get so much damage. It's basically Truth and Students together when your health is below 50. And a lot of people don't really like Titanborn, especially on a Stamblade, because if you're a squishy Stamblade, it's kind of difficult to stay on the offense at low health and still be alive. But a lot of one thing that people tend to overlook for Titanborn is the fact that it gives so much weapon damage at low health, and that can be used to heal yourself up really fast. You're getting a lot of weapon damage for your vigor and your rally at low health, so it kind of makes for a decent defensive set as well on top of offense. And yeah, basically at full health you already have as much damage, if not more, than Handing's Rage, and at about 75% health is pretty much as strong as Students or Yandir's Might. And there's nothing does more damage than this set when you're below 50. It also goes really well with the fact that we are a vampire, so we can survive quite easily. Well, not very easily, but better when you're at low health. So if you play right, you can kind of live at low health and still dish out a lot of damage. Alternative to these sets are Yandir's Might and Deadlands Assassin. Both are very solid options if you do not want to run Titanborn. The other 5-piece set is Clever Alchemist. This is pretty much like the best back bar 5-piece set in the game if you're looking for damage. Lots of burst potential with this set. Some people do not like timing their potions with Alchemist, and if you're one of them, you can choose to run Powerful Assault on the back bar instead. It pretty much gives the same overall average damage as Clever Elk. Difference is just as 100% uptime and less weapon damage at any one time. So it's a good alternative to that. I wouldn't run anything else besides these two for the back bar. And yeah, on this setup we have additional 1-piece slot. I chose to run Bloodspawn because I feel like I just need a little bit more stam recovery. But as I said, this build is very versatile and flexible. If you want to run something else, you can run Chokethorn for mag recovery, Pirate for more armor, and 1-piece Kina or 1-piece Kra for more damage. But I chose to run Bloodspawn. The next set is Talk of Toner Constancy. Probably the most stat dense set in the game. You're getting so much sustain off of just 1 piece, and it's especially good on a Stamblade. Stamblade is probably the best class to use Talk on, better than Max Sword. It just gives you so much magical sustain for Shade and Cloak, and if you need the stam sustain, you can always just force yourself to cast some cloaks and you get a lot of stam sustain, way more than Serpent Stone. So very, very nice for a 1-piece set. If you do not want to run Talk, it's an option as well, but you have to drop your mundus for Serpent, and you have to run some additional max sustain somewhere, but I will go through that later on. Okay, the next set is Vishwan Perfected Maw on the front bar. This is pretty much like the defining set. It's probably going to be the defining set of Blackwood. It is so strong. You get so much additional burst off of just a 1-piece bonus. Like on this setup, is on average a 4 to 5k AoE burst added to your medium attack and almost no cost. And even if you are not using the proc, you also get a lot of weapon damage off of the passive that it gives. So I wouldn't run anything else other than this France bar. But of course, like, farming for it can be difficult. If you are unable to get the perfected version, you can just run a normal version. It's a very small difference. And you can also run more instead of you can also run Great Sword instead of more if you are unable to get it. But Sharpen More is still the most is still the most damage option. So that's all for the gear. I'll go through the enchantments now. As you can see, I'm running all tri-stat enchantments. You shouldn't run anything else on a stem character. Tri-stats are the way to go. You don't really need max stem, especially if you are a medium armor setup like this. Stacking weapon damage is the way to go. In fact, on this setup, you can run more damage if you want. You can run more HP if you want. You can even put all points in the HP and you'll still be fine. You just have to pay a bit more attention to sustain. And for the traits, I'm running all well fitted. Dodge roll, this is a roller blade. Dodge roll is going to be your main form of defense, so you want as much cost reduction as possible. Don't really have to worry about low crit resist. You have CP to make up for it later. And for my jewelry, it's pretty straightforward as well. All infused weapon damage. I don't think Swift is needed. You already have so much speed on this setup, and protective isn't needed as well. Stacking resistance is only good if you already have very high resist, so I wouldn't recommend stacking a lot of resist as a squishy rollerblade. And for my France bar, I'm running Sharpened with Shock Enchantment. The reason why I like Shock Enchantment now is because I realized that with the new like CP passives, it's really easy to proc Concussed, which is like 5% more damage to your enemy. So I think Shock is the best option if you're looking for burst. And finally, for the back bar, I'm running Infused Weapon Damage Enchant with a bow. We are going a bow for the mobility, but also very importantly is the fact that you have a ranged form of attack when you are on a melee setup, and it's really useful on this because you can use it to easily proc Leeching Strikes as well as Assassin's Scourge. And so basically every time you want to burst, you would want to proc your infused weapon damage on your back bar before attacking. It's a lot of damage. If you really want, you can run like defending if you feel like you want more resistance on the back bar, but I highly recommend infused. It's the best option. If you are going defending, you might as well run a dual wheel front bar, 2-hand back bar setup. So that's all for the gear. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, make sure to run 6 medium and 1 heavy. The heavy should be on your chest piece for maximum resistance. And now I'll be going through the skills. For those of you who watched my Stamblade build in Stonethorn, you realize I have the exact same bar setups. So let's go through this quickly. Firstly is Camo Hunter. I'm slotting this for the crit chance as well as minor berserk. You can also get a bit of weapon damage off of it, and also use it to pull Night Blaze out of stealth. Surprise Attack is your main spammable as well as your main CC. Does quite a bit of damage, and it also applies Sundered now, which is really nice. 3k pen, which is like 5 to 8% more damage depending on who you are attacking. And it also applies off balance whether or not you stun them. So let's say if they block your surprise but you set them off balance, you can always follow up with a medium attack into bow or another surprise, which will still stun them and maybe proc your Vade 2-hand as well. And when the enemy is off balance, even if they have CC immunity, you also get twice the amount of resources back when you heavy attack them, so you can use it for sustain as well. Rally is your main burst heal. It's also one of your main buffs. You get major brutality and stem recovery off of it, and it's a really strong burst heal, especially if you're running so much weapon damage. I've gotten like 21k crit rallies when my health was low, so really nice burst heal to have. Relentless Focus is like one of your main burst skills. It also works as a pretty nice buff, gives you crit damage when it's up. One downside of this skill is that it's really easy to avoid. So against like rollers and against squishy rollers or people with like very fast reflexes, I wouldn't recommend casting bow after a surprise. If you know they're going to dodge it, I would just cast surprise instead and keep the crit damage. But in-cap into bow is one of the strongest combos in the game. So if you're able to land it and catch your opponent off guard, you'll almost certainly one-shot them with so much damage, even if they are very tanky. So just have to be aware of when you use this skill. Take some practice to get the timing right. Finally, we are running Executioner. This is a very nice execute to have. At 37% health, it does more damage than your surprise, and at 19% health, it does more damage than Relentless Focus. So it's a really strong skill. I prefer this over Killer's Blade because the main problem I find with Killer's Blade is that sometimes, you know, when you cast it, the enemy just healed like slightly above 25% health and you just miss your kill completely. With Executioner, you will never have that problem because at 40% HP, you can really start killing most people with Executioner. And some squishy players can even be killed at 50% because your light attack will bring them low enough for it to do a lot of damage. So highly recommend running this over Killer's Blade. And finally, for my ultimate, running In-Cap Strike, one of the strongest single target outs in the game, although it's a little bit easy to avoid, but just like Assassin's Scourge, if you're able to time it right, it's very strong. It's really nice to have the extra damage as well, good for passing down tanks after they survive your burst. And it also functions as a pretty nice stun once you have enough out, and you also get a bit of sustain off of it. For open world, you can try running Dawnbreaker or Soul Tether if you want an AoE out instead. Can be really nice when fighting like multiple enemies and you want to stun them all at once. But if you are going to run into a tank, then you'll probably want In-Cap instead. It's going to be quite difficult to kill tanks with Dawnbreaker or Soul Tether. So I will still run In-Cap open world. And now I'll go through my back bar. Shadow Image is like one of the best mobility skills in the game, alongside with Ball of Lightning and Streak. Shade placement is the key to success in Stamblade 1vx. And with Talk, you shouldn't have any issues sustaining your shade. Just make sure to have your shade, to always have your shade up, because you never know when you need an emergency exit just to get out of there quickly. And try to place them in good locations like behind cover, or if you're in a keep tower, you can place it on the ground floor and fight at the top floor and just reset every time. In 1v1s, it also functions as a pretty nice debuff to your enemy, and it can also work well against like people who block a lot, because the attacks will drain their stam if they block it. Next up is Shadowy Disguise. We're using the stealth morph of Shadowy Disguise. I wouldn't recommend running Dark Cloak if you are not a heavy brawler blade. And stealth goes really nice with our vampire passive. You get a lot of free damage off of it. And just like Shade, you have to have really good positioning to make the most out of this skill. So yeah, Stamblade is all about positioning. The next skill is Shuffle. Shuffle, or basically another skill like it, like Mirage, is pretty much necessary if you are looking to play a roller blade. Otherwise, if you run into AoE builds or enemies with a lot of snares and immobilizers, you are just going to lose very quickly. But the reason I like Shuffle over Mirage is because I'm running 6 medium. So with Shuffle, I'm getting like 6 seconds of snare immunity off of it, which is very strong. That's why I prefer it over Mirage. Next up is Resolving Vigor. Not much to say about this. This is just your main heal. And finally, I'm running Leeching Strikes. I like Leeching Strikes for the small amount of heals it gives, as well as the sustain. But honestly, you can run anything you like on the last bar. Like if you are looking for more penetration, you can run Mark. And if you are looking for more crowd control, you know, fight in tight spaces like towers, you can run Trap or Caltrops. So this is really just like a flex spot for you to run whatever you want. And finally, we have Temporal Guard. This is just slotted mainly for the minor protection, but of course it's still a very good active ultimate. It's kind of like Shade. If you just need an emergency burst heal or escape, you can always just use this. So that's all for the skills. Now I'll go through the rest of the stuff. For my attributes, I'm running 15 into health and 49 into stam. You can run pretty much any combination of these two, depending on what you prefer. For my food, I'm running Artaeum Takeaway. You can just run Dubious instead. It's a very small difference, especially after the health recovery nerf, and furthermore we are a vampire, so the health recovery is reduced to almost nothing. So if you want a cheaper option, just run Dubious. I'm running the Shadow for my Mundus. If you are playing in no CP, I would recommend swapping Shadow out for Serpent and keeping everything else the same. And for my race, I'm a Wood Elf. Wood Elf is no doubt the best race for a medium rollerblade. I mean, I see like nothing they can do better than this. But if you want, you can also just go Nord, I guess. And if you're running Nord, then you can swap Shadow out for Serpent. But okay, for my potions, I'm running resist pots, but only physical resistance. And the reason for that is because I don't really find the need for tripods anymore with the new rejuvenation CP passive. I feel like Talk and that passive is more than enough max sustain. But of course, if you feel like it, you can run tripods. Maybe in no CP, you might need tripods sometimes for your max sustain. But I find that more often than not, I'm running out of stam and not mag. So that's why I chose to run resist pots instead. This will give you a lot of mitigation against stam players. You have like 25k physical resistance, but only 18k spell resistance. But as you guys know, like next patch is going to be a stam meta, so it's better to have this than spell resistance. And yeah, on top of that, I'm also a stage 3 vamp for the undeath as well as the cloak passive. Don't have to worry about sustain issues. You are getting so much sustain off of Talk. It's almost impossible to run out if you regulate it correctly. And besides that, make sure to have your Undaunted passives or your armor passives and stuff. And now I'll be going through the CP. For the CP, I will only be going through and explaining the slotted passives. For the rest of them, I will just put a list at the side in order of importance. So for those of you with not enough CP for all of them, you have a rough guide on which one to max out first. So starting from the most important slotted passive, we have Duelist Rebuff, reduces your single target damage taken. On such a squishy setup, you must have at least one resist CP for this, and the best one happens to be Duelist Rebuff. You don't really need the AoE resistance, even though it's just as good, because we already have lots of AoE mitigation from evasion as well as the medium armor passive, so total of 32%. So all you're lacking now is just single target resist. The next two passives are pretty much the same on Stamblade, since most of your damage is single target and direct damage. And not much else to say about this other than they are just really good for damage, better than the crit bonus. And for the last CP star, I'm running Resilience for 10% more crit resist. And I'm doing that because I have literally no other source of crit, and crit builds are going to be much more common next patch after the nerf of Malakath. So you're probably going to want at least some form of crit resistance, and that's why I chose to run this. But of course, you can still run Fighting Finesse for more crit damage yourself. I've played around with both works very well. I just prefer having more crit resist. And for the raid passives, I'm running Survival Instincts. This is like the most broken CP passive ever. You're getting a 25% cost reduction off of all of these skills, and it's pretty much 100% uptime if you are fighting multiple enemies, because even if you're fighting one enemy, it works with like status effects. It's just so easy to apply status effects now with these new CP passives. So this is pretty much almost 100% uptime, and you're getting a lot of sustain off of it. The next passive is Juggernaut. Nothing much to say, just even more resistance, but this time it's against all damage sources, and it's only when you break free that you get it. The third one is Rejuvenation. Very good. It's a very good, well-rounded sustain passive. Gives you both mag and stam recovery. The HP isn't really relevant, but yeah. The last passive, honestly, there's not much to put on the last passives. Like, there isn't really any good passives, but I chose to run Ironclad for more resist. You have plenty of other options to run instead. You can run Slippery or Unchained for stam sustain. You can run Peace of Mind if you want more max sustain. You can run Harden if you run longer CC immunity duration, as well as a bit of stam sustain. Lots of options here. You can even run Bastion if you are looking to cheese damage against some max orcs. So yeah, this is not really an important star to have. So you can run pretty much anything you want on it. And that's pretty much it for all the CP passives. There's not much to discuss in the roleplay CP tree. Just make sure to have 4 damage and maybe enchantments. So that's all for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. And if you want to watch me play this build live, you can check me out on my Twitch. Link is in the description. And I will also try to make a 1vx compilation on YouTube if possible next patch. I know I haven't done one of those in a while, and maybe I might play some other classes as well, like Stamsock, Werewolf, but probably won't be uploading builds on them. But anyway, I hope you like this build, and I wish everyone all the best for next chapter. See you.